I'm here with Lisa, my friend and fellow initiate in the lineage of King Salomon. And today we're going to talk about fairies. Yeah, so when I met Lisa, we were colleagues at a big corporation, and neither one of us had started really in earnest in our spiritual journey at that point. But I started becoming a healer and a life activation practitioner in the lineage of King Salomon. And I had the honor of doing Lisa's life activation a couple years ago. It was a couple years ago now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a year and a half, I think.
Okay. And
Yeah.
during that life activation, you had an encounter with a fairy. So I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
And the reason I want to talk about it is because one, I think not a lot of people acknowledge that these magical beings like fairies and elves and unicorns and myrrh are real, first of all. And then second of all, that they're actually available for us to connect with if we know how and we're respectful. And then three, that they're actually here to help us, so those are things that a lot of people don't know. So I really want to share these stories of people who've had real connections with these beings, and I love your story, so I thought let's start with you. So why don't we start at the beginning? So we were doing your life activation about a year and a half ago.
Right.
In the
So
session,
I
go
just
ahead.
felt like things are kind of stagnant and
Mm.
it's not moving.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in transition. I just left the corporation. I went through a huge um, health problem, and then I lost a couple of loved ones in the family, and then had just a series of tragic events. And I was in a, a depression, like a clinical depression, and then I really wanted to have something different, like something to push me out of that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why
Yeah.
when Dawn was offering that service, I was like, what is life activation, and
Mm-hmm.
how is that different than acupuncture? so
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's why
We
I
can
said,
talk about that for
I
sure.
wanted to experience that, if that can help me push to my next stage. And also I was looking for something more than just day-to-day life, something a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more
Yeah.
fulfilling. So yeah.
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 And so, for everyone, the actual session is different.
Hmm.
But you had a really beautiful experience that
Yeah.
was really, I think, profound for you.
Yes.
And I haven't had anyone have a similar experience to date, to be honest, but your story, they've had different experiences that were, equally profound for them. But your experience was so amazing. And so I'll just explain what was happening during the session when this happened. So
Mm-hmm.
I was facing you, and
Mm-hmm.
I was doing the part of the life activation protocol, which is called the energy healing or energy balancing part of the protocol. And so I'm facing you, and you were facing me, but you were looking at the wall. And then all of a
I
sudden,
actually, my eyes were closed.
oh, your
So
eyes
I
were
wasn't seeing
closed.
anything. Yeah, I wasn't
Okay,
seeing anything. Yes. Yeah,
got
I
it.
didn't know what you were doing.
Uh-huh.
I just kind of let you, go on, because that's a relatively long process. It's like an hour,
Yeah.
right? Right.
An
And
hour and a half.
I just remember I didn't want it to have any preconceived notion of anything. So I kept my eyes closed, hoping that I would be able to, one, receive directly if there's any message, and for myself. So I saw, as you were going through this process, I saw a, a lily starting to unfold its leaf. I think I mentioned that to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I started seeing there was a being.
Mm-hmm.
At first I thought it was might be an angel. I didn't know what was it, the being. And then suddenly I was like, afterwards I was like really odd, and I said, Dom, I saw this angel. She's kind of goldenish, but she's kind of half floating um in this upper right corner. And she has two sets of wings, and I didn't know there's any angels that has two sets of wings. So I have to go home and Google
Mhm.
that.
And I remember I immediately said, "Oh no, that's not an angel, that's a fairy."
That's a fairy. I was like,
Yeah, that's
oh,
a fairy.
I
Yeah, and
didn't know
I was
fairy
able to
existed.
like tune
Yeah.
into it at that
Yeah.
moment
And
and be
that
like,
was
"Nope, that
interesting
wasn't an angel,
because
that was a fairy."
I didn't go in thinking of a certain image that would come to my head. It just
Right.
formed, it kind of formulated by itself into my
Yeah,
head.
right. You
Yeah.
had no preconceived notions going in.
No.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I do have to say that was the first experience that I had to actually visualize something like a being or object or process. Because before that, I don't think I have this intuition, and perhaps I had it in me, and then the life activation was able to flush it through so that the message was coming through more clearly. So
Yeah.
yeah, so that was my very, very first experience. And afterwards I was like, I don't know, I saw something, but I don't know what's happening. That was my experience. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember you told me during, because you were actually crying. Um,
Yes.
I mean, you were tearing up, I guess.
Yeah,
Crying
it
is
was
not
very
exactly what
moving.
was happening, but you were definitely tearing up, and
Yeah.
um
I
so
met people, I met loved ones. I met it's almost like when I don't know if people, I mean, if they remember a scene from Harry Potter, but when he first stand in front of the mirror
mhm.
of, I forgot the name of that mirror, but he was able to see his parents who were
Right, right.
deceased. And that's how I felt. I was able to see them.
Yeah.
And that was a very profound connection, like at
Mhm.
that moment.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So you
feeling
had
their presence.
connection with your
Hmm.
ancestors, and then you were able to see a fairy,
Hmm.
um, which you thought was an angel at first, which it
Yes.
probably didn't. You know what I mean? We actually know, as you know, maybe others don't know, that we do work with a lot of angelic
Hmm.
energy in the life activation and many healings in our lineage. But as soon as you
Wow.
told me the being had two wings, I just tuned into it and I said, "Oh, that was a fairy." Like I just felt, oh no, that wasn't an angel, that was a fairy. And then you're like, a fairy.
Yeah.
And what
A fairy.
yeah, did you at that moment did you think at that moment did you believe that fairies were real?
At first I was a little bit held back. I was thinking because I have seen angels before and they usually are pretty big, and then but
Mhm.
this particular, being about probably our size or a
Mhm.
little bit smaller. So
Mhm.
then I was thinking that probably isn't an angel. And then so I went home and I kept thinking about it. And then I was able to actually paint
Mm.
a painting watercolor
Right,
out of
because
that.
you're an
Yeah.
artist. You're an artist, so you were able to, yeah, create that
Yeah.
actual piece of work. And what kind of emotional response did you have from seeing that being?
Now I remember it was joy, like lots of joy. It was full of golden light, and it was just like almost like almost like drinking Sprite.
Like, like drinking Sprite. That's so
It
cute.
was like this like full of joy, bubbly,
Mm,
and refreshing. That's
mhm.
the only thing that I can come to my mind. It's like it's
Yeah.
so full of energy and happy, and
Well,
it was
yeah.
like a being of light. Yeah.
Yeah, you just described the fairies perfect. And when I said at the beginning that, these beings have lessons for us and they can help us, one of the main things that the fairies can help humans with is joy. And
Mm,
also tapping into the present moment, because we
yeah.
get in too much in our minds and bogged down with negativity or worries or stress.
Right.
The fairies, they live in the present moment, and they are able to channel joy like at
They're
any
very
moment.
connected to the
They're
earth,
very
isn't it?
connected. Yeah, sure, of course. Yeah, they're very connected to nature, and the elements. But their main gift to us, I feel, is joy. They can really teach us about joy and living in the present moment. And